coming up on the Morning Star podcast.
I think I remember the first year talking to people about how they would come every single night because their kids loved it so much, and it gave them something to do and something to get out of the house. And that first year we were learning a lot, and like some nights the line would be out the driveway and down the road, and people would wait in line for a really long time just to have something that brought them some joy and something that brought their family together. So I think just those elements that have kind of been touched on already of bringing joy into a dark place, and especially that first year having a season that was so hard, and then giving something that families had already seen and wanted to come back to time and time again was just really cool.
Welcome to the Morning Star podcast, where we engage in meaningful conversations that display God's handiwork and encourage you to live a Jesus-first life. And now, listen in to learn more about your church community.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Morning Star podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Mayhew, and I have a whole crew of people with me here today. Woo. We're going to be talking about the lights at Morning Star, but before we get into that, let's go ahead and go around the table and do some introductions. A lot of familiar faces here, hopefully to all of you, and our first ever online guest. So, let's go ahead and we'll go around the table, and I don't want to spoil any names yet, but go ahead and introduce yourself, say a little bit about your connection with the lights, and yeah.
Awesome. My name is Jared, and I am the community outreach business coordinating person.
Nice.
Woo.
My name's Cooper Anderson at the church. I'm the worship and creative director. For the lights, I am the creative director as well for that event.
Very creative.
Nice. My name is John Jaskilka, and I'm the executive pastor at the church. So I kind of, with the lights, get in the way a little bit and hopefully kind of just keep things moving forward and make sure all systems are go.
Nice. Yeah, Katrina.
Yeah, my name's Katrina Kennedy. I worked at Morning Star for 17 years and got to be involved with the first 2 years of the lights as kind of the logistics coordinator before I moved to California.
Awesome. Yeah. And our first ever online guest, thank you so much for calling in from California, where it's hopefully sunny and warm and not miserable and rainy. So if you want to send some weather up
sunny.
Our way.
It is a little cold, but...
Oh, probably like what?
Yeah, it's
60?
sunny. It's a little cold, but it was 46 this morning.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow, man.
So that's pretty cold for there. Yeah. Okay. You're suffering through it. We thank you for being with us.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you went to work today, Katrina.
It's very cold. Yes. So real quick, I just kind of wanted to throw out for those who aren't aware, or, just to recap for those of us who are, what is the lights at Morning Star? Is it like is it our street lamp collection? Like, what is it? Someone explain this, little bit about how long we've been doing it, probably. Yeah.
Who wants to take it?
Maybe let's start with Katrina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yes.
So the lights at Morning Star was something that was birthed out of kind of COVID, as many different ministry opportunities were. And we really saw a need to allow our community to join together, and had this vision to create this Christmas lights drive-through. So the Lights at Morning Star is a Christmas lights drive-through that allows people to hear a unique story, to see some awesome Christmas lights, and to ultimately hear the good news of Jesus.
Yeah.
Nice.
And along with that, a huge benefit is that we raise funds for Salem Angels as well. So the first few years, we raised quite a bit of money through donations of people that came through for Salem Angels, which is a foster family support nonprofit, and they just help in so many ways, and we wanted to help them in that way. And so not only does the event bless the community, but it also gets to bless families experiencing foster care around the Salem area. So,
And for those of you curious in learning more about Salem Angels, I believe early on, we do have a Salem Angels podcast.
Yes,
This
we
is
do.
the first one.
Yeah, from December of 2022 or something like that.
Yeah.
So if you scroll way back, the audio probably sounds a little different back then, but feel free to learn all about Salem Angels that way.
Yeah.
For my reference, how big of a Christmas lights thing are we talking here? Is this like a, we did up a front lawn, or like, do you know how many lights are involved? Or
I feel like Jared is the correct person to answer this.
I
He's
wish
the numbers guy.
I wish we could calculate the number of lights overall. So I'm not even going to throw out a number because it'll mess it up, but it won't be accurate. But it takes, when you listen to the story that's associated with it, it takes about 10 to 11 minutes to drive through. Mm-hmm. So it's not just one quick thing that you see and you're done. Each of the 8 scenes takes a good 30 to 45 seconds to take in everything that's happening. And there's sometimes there's movement, sometimes there's snow that's coming in. There's lots of different things going on. So
and it takes up like the entirety of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, like our whole campus is decked out in lights. We've got a ton of stuff and a ton of people coming through, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it includes all the side parking lot, all the front parking lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's cool though. It's cool. So what was the like original goal with the lights? Like why even do the lights, right? Like we started this in 2020. What was the motivation, the point? Like what were we hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, Katrina kind of mentioned that, but going back to the world in 2020, we remember lockdowns and all that was around with the pandemic, and it was what can we do to reach people? So I remember we were in a staff meeting, and we had some ideas of what we could do, but we just asked the staff, "Hey, like blank slate, blank canvas, let's paint a picture of something brand new we could do to be a light in this community and to reach people and to go towards people in a world where everyone was staying isolated." And from that, in some of those brainstorms, one of the ideas was a big Christmas light drive-through, and we kind of took it and ran with it, and the lights was born. So I think originally it was really clear we wanted to provide light in a community during a dark time. People were really hurting and struggling. That's usually the reality in the world. There's always people hurting and struggling, but it was really obvious during that time frame. So we wanted to provide light to the community. We wanted to share, as Katrina said, the light of Jesus, the good news, the gospel. And then we wanted to make people aware of Salem Angels, which was a brand new nonprofit organization in town that was coming along, the foster family community. So we really wanted to highlight that ministry.
And in like the 3 years since we've started things, like we're planning on doing it again this year. This podcast is going to drop in the beginning of December. And hopefully we've already had a few volunteer setup days and are about to even run the lights maybe.
Right. Yep.
So like how much is our motivations is like the pandemic has changed and yada, yada, whatever.
So much.
Unprecedented. But how has our motivations changed, or is it kind of the same, or like we're still doing it 3 years later?
So much of that is almost the same. I mean, the lockdowns are done, the pandemic's over, but there's a mental health crisis in our community. We see that. We see the division. We see the challenges. We see the poor economy. And so we want to bring people together. And so this is, like John said, that's just in a fallen, sinful world, those things are still there. And so we know that this can continue to bring hope and joy to people. Whether they accept Jesus or not, everybody will see the light of Jesus by going through this. And so some people are on the cusp and they're ready to accept him. And some, this is maybe their first glimpse of who Jesus can be and how others that are Christ followers can have their lives changed. So,
yeah. Well, and tell me a time that you don't need a little bit of joy during the midst of a stressful year in a holiday season. I mean, to give families a good, wholesome source of something fun to do during the Christmas season that has a good positive message. We're changing up the story this year, and it's going to be a whole new message and stuff like that. But to kind of tell the gospel to that many people, to get a good, positive, fun family event across where you can go do something great and fun during the holiday season with your family. I mean, those needs will always persist. And I think that it's important to see people from outside of the walls of our church come onto this campus and see a little bit of hope and joy and light during the holiday season, and hear the good news and see our church working together. And also the way that it brings our church together. I mean, I volunteered with people that I had never met before the past few years that we did this. And I saw so many people who maybe this person was serving on the greeters team and this person's on the worship team or whatever. And they're serving side by side, meeting new people, making new connections. And the life that brought was just something that I hadn't seen in quite that way before. And it was really cool. So I think there's still a lot of, COVID may have kicked us into thinking that way, but there's still so many wins about this event that are very evident.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. A few months ago, actually almost a year ago, I was sitting at a table for like a Bible study, and there were some new people at our church from there. And some regulars that had been at Morning Star for a long time were talking to the new people about the church. And then these regular attenders were like, you cannot wait for the lights. It's going to be amazing. And you're going to get to know so many people. And it was really fun to hear some of our people telling this new family about the lights and how to be involved. And that's a way to get connected. And it was really awesome.
Yeah, I was in the line at Trader Joe's checking out and talking to the guy. I can't even remember how it came up, but he was like, "Oh, you're the church that does that lights event. That was cool." So like seeing people that aren't even like remotely connected to our church out in the community talk about that and say, that was a cool event. I really like that. I think you can see the wakes of that,
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I don't know if Katrina, you had anything you wanted to add. Make sure give you some space online. Otherwise, okay.
No, ditto to everything that got said.
Excellent. Yeah. What are some of like the fruit you guys have seen come from the lights? Like whether that's like bigger trends or like even like small stories you have of like people being touched or impacted in some way by the lights inside our church, outside our church, or whatever. Like, especially like thinking back to even like the first year of the lights, because we didn't do it last year, if I remember right, because basically
Katrina left,
and then everyone else started to have a child.
We had like 4 staff members having babies at the same time.
But really, it was Katrina. It was just like, how can we recover from this drastic blow? It took us like hiring 4 people to replace her. So
that's why the children were being had to help replace Katrina. Right?
Exactly.
The numbers, we had to get the numbers back up.
But yeah, like, so what's some of the fruit, some of the stories or things that you've heard or seen or experienced about the lights that kind of emphasizes why we did it in the first place and why we're continuing to do it?
Do we want to start with Katrina before she gets left behind?
I think I remember the first year talking to people about how they would come every single night because their kids loved it so much, and it gave them something to do and something to get out of the house. And that first year we were learning a lot, and like some nights the line would be out the driveway and down the road, and people would wait in line for a really long time just to have something that brought them some joy and some something that brought their family together. So I think just those elements that have kind of been touched on already of bringing joy into a dark place, and especially that first year having a season that was so hard, and then giving something that families had already seen and wanted to come back to time and time again was just really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really cool. I love that. Like coming every night. That's got to be a lot of fun. Yeah. What about you guys? What are some fruit you guys have seen?
I think just hearing from people within our church, people within the community, that this is something that they are excited to do as like a new Christmas tradition. And so we all have Christmas traditions that we love, and they bring joy to our heart. And so hearing from people that this actually brought our family together. Like we brought the grandparents and the grandkids, and there's 3 generations in the car at once, and we're having conversations, and we're having cocoa, and we're laughing and smiling as we go through this together. Like that kind of theme, I heard that quite a bit. There was one car we saw that they actually had 4 generations in their car. Actually, there was a couple different cars that had 4 generations.
Okay.
People would come from other towns to be able to drive through this together as a family. And so just stuff like that they can bring a family together. Just something as simple as Christmas lights is pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like the being the part of their tradition in a way. Like I think of like the holiday traditions that have blessed me over the years. And it's one of those things where like, sure, the first time it's cool. And then the second time it's cool, but like the tradition, they almost grow more rich.
Yes.
Right. And so it's one of those, like, it's an awesome investment we're able to make into the family, that family in our community, right? Who may or may not know Jesus, may or may not go to this church, but either way, we're really enriching their lives and able to show them the love of Christ in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I got a little bit ahead of myself last time, but like hearing people in the community talk about it, seeing how many people serve together in new ways. I mean, there's families that have come for the first time to Morning Star because of the lights event. And we've heard those stories. And so I think that, and that's something too, that you almost sometimes can't get a complete metric for that, because that's going to pay off down the line. Oh, that's the place that does the lights every year. You know, oh, I should go visit. Like when someone is reaching a point where they're like, man, I really need to get back to church. If they think of a place that loves the community that they can go get connected, I think we see those impacts over time that don't always get a metric for them, but that we've seen hints of throughout the years as we've been doing this. So.
Yeah, I'd agree with everything that was said. From a little bit bigger picture, I think it forces us in a good way, directs us to come face to face with how are we equipped to share the gospel? How can we year round be stepping towards our neighbors? And then, that week and weeks that we do the lights, who you're going to invite to come, the people that we have to pray for people, not just to trust Jesus, but if they have prayer requests and stuff, we have people ready to pray. And I think that then requires some sort of equipping that then in a good way forces questions like, what am I doing to be equipped? And so I think that whole thing, it helps us to be more evangelistic as a church. And sometimes we can't. Sometimes that's a little more abstract than some would like, but at the same time, that foundation is through all that we're doing with that. So I think that's a pretty neat thing that the lights draws out of us.
So it almost seems like kind of the theme of your answer is that there's two, like it's not just blesses the community, but it blesses our church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing
it's a
all
2 for 1
work to put it on and to host it. And as you were talking about, making us actually like reckon with our hearts and see if we do have that evangelistic attitude. What are some, like, kind of focusing, like I said, it'd be fun to like focus on each of those individually for a little bit. What are some ways in which it has blessed like our church family specifically? Like you talked about giving us the ability to like look at our hearts and examine them and see where our attitude is at. But
yeah, I mean, I think Cooper touched on that a couple minutes ago, just like people getting to know other people, serving in other areas. And in a sense, it's kind of like a in-town missions trip. I mean, we're on mission and it's really clear. And sometimes the week to week with church on Sunday, life group, whenever your life group meets, or your men's or women's group, whatever, like those are really good. But it can become routine. And sometimes you lose that urgency for mission. So this brings up an urgency that galvanizes us together, and it creates unity and a bond that's really, really neat. So I think that's one of the ways it benefits the church. And then having something that we can be proud of. I mean, it's well done. It's beautiful. It's excellent. It is top notch. And it's really, really amazing that God allows us to do that. And that creates a sense of, the good sense of pride, right? Like we're going to work hard on something and it's beautiful unto the Lord and it brings glory to him. And we can feel good about that. And so that encourages the body.
And seeing the gifts that it brings out of people that we didn't realize were there. Oh, I didn't know you did construction stuff, or I didn't know that for years you were some sort of interior designer. Like you see these people kind of, as they're serving, rise up into new places, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. Like they came through in that way. They really had a joyful attitude. And man, seeing the smiles on people's faces, even when they're serving in the rain, like that was something that got me every year we've done it so far. Is like, yeah, there's some long nights in the cold and the rain out there, but everyone's like always so cheerful and joyful. Yeah. And to see that like morale.
Everybody.
Almost
everybody.
Except for John.
Yeah. John's like,
dude, if my socks get wet, I'm done. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I bought waterproof boots for the lights.
Yes. There you go.
I think my socks are wet every single night. So.
Yeah. Katrina was always there in like knitted shoes or those knit shoes. I was like, what? How are you surviving?
It's funny. Also everything we do, we want it to fit within our mission of leading people to pursue a Jesus first life. And so I think there's a lot of discipleship that we see from the lights, people who are either attending the lights and receiving something from it, have then come back and started to contribute to it, whether as a sponsor or whether as somebody who's coming and serving, in one of the nights of the show, or building something, or setting up, or using their creative eye, or whatever the case may be. So people that are contributing and actively participating as well, that wouldn't necessarily have done that otherwise, I think is really great to see, because then that inspires and encourages others to do the same.
Yeah, it sounds like the lights requires like a large group, diverse group of like abilities and servants to put on, right?
Yeah.
Like how many people, how many volunteers do you think? I don't know if Katrina, like from the early days, like how many volunteers did it take
I should have looked up the numbers. I used to know. I don't remember. It was a lot.
Yeah. Like, are we talking in the hundreds, or maybe not quite that much? About 100?
Yeah, from setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, way more than 100.
Way more than 100. Between like construction projects and work days and creative stuff to the development, and then the nightly running of it, from the hot chocolate booths to the carolers to the parking people to, there's so many different ways to serve with the lights. And kind of like one of you said, the diversity of gifts required to put this event on is really cool, because it draws in a lot of different people from a lot of different areas and a lot of different skill sets. So yeah, lots of volunteers, really. And I think it's one of the coolest things about the lights is, anyone can serve with the lights, and some events require different types of giftings or talents or a burden in one way. And the cool thing with the lights is anyone can serve. There's such a diversity of needs that we can find a spot for anyone.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I'm thinking, like, if you think of the church as like a body, it's almost like a really, really tacky metaphor, but that's like a full body workout, right? Yeah. Like we get to use all of the parts of our body, and like everyone gets to feel, valued and contributed, and everyone gets to be a part of the discipleship that comes from serving, right? As we serve and we learn and we grow to be more like Christ, who was a servant himself. Like by having that opportunity for everyone, regardless of their gifts or their abilities. Like maybe they don't feel like they're the best at talking with strangers, but they can hand out hot chocolate with a smile. Yeah. And like, that's a gift to just be able to smile at people you don't know, or maybe like you don't really like that, but you know what? You want a nail and a hammer, and you find putting up lights, like you're a part of that too. Yeah. And as a family, like that's something that, because it requires so many volunteers, it does feel like it feels like a whole team effort, right? It's something that brings us all together.
For sure.
Which is really something I've appreciated about it in the times that I've helped with the lights. It's like, I'm like, you random person who I've seen across the sanctuary on a Sunday morning, but never really have interacted with. But like, I now feel like I'm really on the same mission with you as part of a family. Yeah. Yeah. What are some ways in which it's blessed, like changing the focus a little bit? What are some of the ways in which it's blessed our community? Like what are some of the feedback we've gotten from the community, maybe, or some of our connections with that? I was scrolling through the Google comments or whatever online of our church. Okay. Yeah.
there's a lot of them from years and years and years, but many of the most recent ones, and there's not tons of Yelp reviews or comment reviews there, but many of the most recent ones are like, loved the lights, such a great event, good for my family, beautiful, so that's really good to see. People who don't go to our church who are coming in and giving a 5-star review for that is pretty rewarding. So that's one thing I've noticed. There's lots of others though.
Yeah. Well, and seeing like local businesses partnering and saying literally financially, I'm going to put something towards this because I believe in this event and its ability to like reach people and impact the community in a positive way. I think it's cool to see like a lot of events that we do here on the campus are kind of by our church and we put it all on and do all the stuff for it. But this one, I mean, we're partnering with Salem Angels. We're partnering with businesses throughout the community. We're, like people, like the impact of it being a thing around the city of Salem is something that we don't often get to do as a church here on our campus. And it's a great way to use our campus to kind of partner with the community, to bring them in, to do it alongside them, that kind of thing.
Yeah. We say that this is not an event that Morningstar is doing for the community. It's an event that Morningstar is doing with the community.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference. It's not Morningstar being held up on a pedestal. It's the community as a whole, arm in arm, locked together, doing this because we see the value for the community. And I'm a numbers nerd, so I think one way we can see the value of the community is that we can quantify it a little bit. We have had just over 30,000 people in the 2 years that we've done this attending. So I think 30,200 people or something like that.
30,000?
30,000 in the 2 years doing this. It's
incredible.
A free event. Okay, so keep in mind it's free, but those people that have driven through, this is not the businesses, but the people that have driven through have donated to Salem Angels just over $40,000. So that's $1.33 roughly per person. And if you average just under 4 people per car, which we calculated and measured, then you're talking about every single car giving about $5 to a free event because they see the value that it has in the community and how much it blesses Salem Angels. So I think that's something we can quantify and say, this really does bless the community as a whole in quite a few ways.
I mean, even if we're doing an event where you have 3,000 people hit the campus, 5,000, like that's awesome. But to have 18,000 people the first year and 13,000 people the second year come through that event, we're talking a significant impact on the city of Salem and the surrounding areas. And it's just so worth doing to reach that many people. I think, John, in a meeting yesterday, you were saying it's something like, he was like, if we had a chance to fill out the Moda Center somehow, some way, wouldn't we take that shot at all costs? And this is our chance, like throughout the course of the event, pretty much filling out the Moda Center and telling people about the gospel in a creative way and creating something for their family that they can just smile at during the holiday season. I mean, that's awesome,
Yeah.
And I just wanted to circle back around and touch on Salem Angels again. I think just our connection with that nonprofit is something I'm really proud of. And like they are us and we are them. We link arms at every chance we can to make an impact in the community. As was on your podcast back at the beginning, just hearing about the love boxes and the mentoring. And it's just really, really cool. And we want that to grow. I mean, when people are listening to it, this event would have already happened. But this Saturday, we're getting ready for foster parent night out, where foster parents can bring their kids to the church. We let their parents go on a date or take a nap or clean their house or whatever. We take care of their kids and feed them and play games with them. And it's super fun. But that is all kind of from the lights, that original partnership, all those ministries happening. And I think it was a year or 2 years ago, Salem Angels was given a very prestigious award in our community for being the nonprofit of the year. I don't remember exactly what category, but it was really, really neat. I think it was the Chamber's Business Nonprofit of the Year. It was a high honor. That's awesome. That's us that have done it because it's a partnership, but being able to to put a huge spotlight on that organization at the beginning is something that has just such ramifications in a positive way for our community that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
This is kind of on the topic of community, but it's on my heart to share. So if it's a little tangent, I apologize. But I feel like with events, people in the church have a tendency to kind of think towards the line of thinking of like, if there is not someone saying the sinner's prayer at the end of the event, was it worth putting on, right? And obviously what we're after as a church is people meeting Jesus, people coming to know Jesus. But there's a whole process where that takes place. There's a clear, picture in scripture of the parable where the seeds are planted, they're watered, they grow, and then, there's the harvest. And God, the Holy Spirit, is ultimately the one that is responsible for bringing people around and touching a heart like no one else can. But I think that we can short sell it sometimes if we say, unless someone is saying the sinner's prayer at the end of the event, it's not worth doing. I see this as a seed planting event or a seed watering event, something that, like, I don't know the stats, Jared, you probably know them, but the amount of times it takes for a person to hear the gospel message before they're seven times before they're likely to even make that decision. So I feel like you've got to have, from all spectrums, we're using our giftings, we're seeking people for Jesus. And for me, this event is something that brings people onto our church campus. It shows them that we love the community, that we love families in foster care, that we're willing to partner with people to come alongside them, so that when they ultimately come to time 5, 6, 7 of hearing the good news and they need somewhere to go, like any church in Salem that believes in Jesus Christ, we're like, great, I'm glad they landed there, right? Yeah. But if we can do something to say, hey, when you're ready, we're here. We have small groups. We have people that are ready to disciple you. We have a loving community to step into that lives Jesus first. Like, that kind of thing is just invaluable. And it's something that I wish we could see metrics for on, to the number, like, this is how many salvations, but that's just something you can't even measure the full impact of. But that over time, you're going to see pay off in major ways, because when you touch 13,000 people with the gospel message, and that stirs something in their heart, and then they have a conversation with a friend, the Holy Spirit can use that to follow up in major ways. And to me, that's what I see this event being for our community, is somewhere where they know it's on the map. They're reminded of the importance of the gospel, and they can come around when the Spirit's moving in their life.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I think with that, what Cooper was saying, like, every year is going to be different. Yeah. And over the first 2 years, a lot of seed planting, and who knows what's going to happen this year? Who knows what's going to happen next year? But I kind of think of the analogy of bamboo. Like, for a long time, it hardly grows. It's nothing. And then all of a sudden, it takes off and it can grow, a couple feet in a day. Someone might know that analogy better and know the exact metrics of how much it can grow. But that could happen with the lights. I mean, the first couple years, we prayed with people. Some people came to our church. We know of a few people who trusted Jesus. If someone's going just by the numbers of sinners' prayers prayed, there's not a lot of those, but that could happen. And if it does, let's go. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And not to say that can't happen at the event.
Yeah.
That was not my argument, but
yeah,
like, if the Spirit chooses to use it in that way, fantastic, and he's going to move in ways that we can't. But for the most part, I think seeing people just come onto this campus and be loved and know that they can hear the gospel message in a fun, exciting way, I think is awesome.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been so cool about this event is that we have seen God in it since the beginning. And that from the very first part, we said, like, if God isn't in this, we don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah,
and there's no way we would have pulled it up off that first year if God wasn't in it. Like, we raised $100,000 in such a short amount of time We had people come together to build these incredible sets in such a short amount of time. And it was like seeing God's hand every step of the way, through the fundraising, through the advertising, through the pulling off of the event. At the end of that first year, I just remember stepping back and being like, God was in that. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. Like, that wasn't
100%.
us doing that. We didn't make that happen. God made that happen. And so I think that that's one of the coolest things about this event is, for me, I felt like it built my faith and helped me think outside the box even of what does ministry and witness and mission look like. And that's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Do you remember like when you guys originally had the idea back in 2020 of doing this? Was it like November of 2020 or like September or
Barely before November.
Barely before
It
November?
was September. It was our September all staff. Our meeting is the first Wednesday in September. And so we brainstormed a list of, what was it, like 50 ideas?
Yeah.
And then it was the following week, we narrowed that down to just 1 or 2 ideas, I think.
We're talking idea to execution in 2.5 months for the first, like, unless God is in that.
Yeah.
There was zero chance that was going to happen with our own strength. Like, we raised, I think $100,000 was raised in like 2 weeks. I'm not even joking you.
A little more than that, but yeah, it was
Like, it was maybe a month. Like, it was the fastest I have.
We'll go
Very
with
fast.
very fast.
Very fast. Yeah, it was insane. Like, God was in it. Yeah. And that's been our prayer every year is, God, if you're not in this, don't allow it to happen. And last year, God said, pause. So we paused. This year, we feel like God's saying, go. So we're going to try it again and go for it and see how much we can impact the community. So
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. Yeah. Sorry, just to make sure, $100,000 raised from the community?
yeah, for
Like,
the first year.
For the
And
first
then
year?
50,000 the second year, I think.
67 in the second.
67.
Wild.
Yep. And then this year so far we have, I don't know, can we share the metric of what we've raised so far this year?
We've got it. In order to do this, it takes so many volunteers, like we're talking about, but also lots of businesses and lots of partners. So we've got 8 committed business partners right now. We've got another 4 or 5 that are in the process of coming on, and we're still hoping for some more. But it takes a lot of people, a lot of businesses, and a lot of.
And this
their
is
commitment to it.
Thursday, November 2nd. This is being recorded. So when you guys hear this, this will be way down the line. We'll have way more because our business team is reaching out to the community. But so far, even it's looking great for this year. So
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I mean, even those businesses investing that much money shows that from the beginning, they also see value for this for their community, right?
100%.
Yeah, and even that some of our contacts in these businesses say, "Hey, I'm personally super excited about this because I brought my child last year, and they keep asking about it." Or like that.
Yeah.
That's so cool to hear and see. Them saying, "Hey, our staff is really interested in this. We want to come volunteer together."
Awesome.
2 years ago, when we did this, one of our sponsors brought almost their entire staff, and they served at the welcome area for a night, and they were the whole team. There was like 12 of them. It was amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Kind of, I think one thing that I do want to make sure we touch on before we run out of time here is the stories that we do share, like at the lights. Because in 2020 and 2021, we had one story, and then now we're moving to a different one.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like those of you who are like very involved at the beginning, like why did you guys choose the story that you chose? Like, what was the rationale behind that? Where did that story come from? And so, like, what's kind of the thinking behind that?
Yeah. I think that art has a way to lower people's defenses and show Jesus in new ways that are relatable. So the reason that for the first year that we went with kind of like a fun Christmas rhyme-based, almost children's book story that talked about hope and light and the light that a character called Leo finds at the end of his journey, was because it's something that can be relatable, that can be fun for families, that doesn't feel dry and just informational, right? And I think that the reason why we crafted the story the first year of Leo going on this journey was to help people to maybe pick a scenario where I've been there before, or I can relate to that, or a kid can kind of see it from that perspective, and their family appreciates that, and ultimately seeing that character come around to being ready to meet the creator of light, Jesus, was kind of a cool way to craft that in something that's fun and warm and nostalgic, but still has a heart that is impactful and that will touch people in an incredible way. And then this year's story, we're kind of breaking down some myths. I'm really excited for it. We're telling the original story of Saint Nicholas and one of the first gifts that he ever gave.
Yeah.
So instead of saying Santa Claus is coming to town, our goal this year is to say, did you know that the reason that Santa gave Saint Nicholas, who was Bishop Nicholas at the time, he was like a pastor in his town. The reason that he gave selflessly of his massive inheritance that he got from his parents who passed away was because the hope of Jesus had impacted him. And he wanted to do something practically to show that in his community to others. And his impact in that community inspired others to do the same, and it spread worldwide. So I think people lose sight of that in the holiday. Yeah, it's Santa and it's fun gifts and all this stuff. Yeah, that's awesome. But do you know where that came from? Do you know what that was inspired by? Do you know his story and the story of that the Turkish trader that he helped, who was in a sea town, and so anyways, there's a cool story to be told there, and I'm excited for this year to put out a whole new one.
Yeah, it's really, really redemptive, and it's a story most people in culture don't know and don't recognize. Everyone has Santa as part of their Christmas tradition, and it's fun. But just to have the origin story of Santa and just how Christ is in the center of that story, it's beautiful, man. So I remember,
awesome.
I remember we made a very clear decision early on in the story planning phase. There's a couple routes we could have gone, and both would have been great. We could have gone Mary on the road to Bethlehem with the donkey, and she's pregnant, and the Savior's going to be born, and that would have been fantastic, and it would have been beautiful and amazing, and lots of churches put a huge emphasis on telling that because that's the gospel and the Bible and all that. Yeah. But we decided not to do that, the road to Bethlehem type journey, which was an option that we were really praying through. And it was really to have the community in mind of what would connect with them first and then lead them to, because I mean, obviously the birth of Jesus is the reason for Christmas, and we interweave it into the stories that we do. Yeah. But we wanted to start with the community first and work their way towards the gospel, where a lot of, and that again, gospel is of first importance. It is primary. Yeah. And that, I just remember that being a really intentional decision that we made and prayed through back in the early days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing I liked about the first story we did was it felt very similar to the situation a lot of the world was in at the time. Like if I remember the story is like basically Leo is lonely. He doesn't have a community. He can't find one. And then Jesus, or the creator of light, meets him in his loneliness. Yeah. Like that's the very quick version, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, man, how do you, like that's 2020, right? Yep. That's 2020. And I'm excited for this next story. It's kind of like a little bit of a, like I love history. I'm like the kind of the true story of this, like I think is going to be like super appealing.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
And this one I'm excited for. It breaks the fourth wall too and kind of brings the audience along with on the journey and kind of talks directly to them, and then jumps into narrative form where we kind of hear the characters dialoguing, and then comes back out, almost kind of like a Princess Bride thing, if you've seen that movie, where they go back
straight
and forth.
to my heart. Straight to my heart.
Inconceivable.
Yeah,
Yes.
No more rhymes. I mean it. Anyone want a peanut?
So it's this year's story is gonna be cool, and I can't wait for everyone to see it.
Yeah, awesome. I think we're kind of approaching the edge of our time here. So before we start wrapping up things officially, I just kind of wanted to throw it around and see if anyone had any else like last closing thoughts or anything you wanted to share, whether that's just like your hope or goal for the Lights or something you want to say to the church family, the people that are listening around that.
2024, we're planning to take this on the road to Sacramento and join
Hold on.
Bayside.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
Hot off the press.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Franchises coming.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
So we need a donation of at least 15 more trailers to get this on.
Exactly. It's basically so we can all see Katrina.
Yeah, pretty
that's
much.
really
Just a
that's
big
really what
visit
we're
trip.
doing. No, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how God shows up, because He showed up every step of the way, and that's my prayer for this year again. And I'm excited to bring my family again and to see how it impacts the community again. So it's just anticipation and looking forward to see what God does.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. I mean, He's done something a little bit different every year, and ultimately, we pray so many times throughout the course of planning this. I mean, we've been meeting since like January of this year about this event, and the amount of times that we go to the Lord and just say, God, if you're not in this, we don't want it. Like we need you to be in this for it to be something. Otherwise, it's just another event. And so, if the church, if you're listening to this, join us in praying for this event. I mean, it has a chance to impact a lot of people, has a chance to stir their hearts towards Jesus in an amazing way and get them connected to our church community in a way that will disciple them for years and years to come. Those impacts are not something we want to look past. And so just join us in praying that the Spirit would be moving, that this would be something that is so God-centered that when their tires come onto this campus, they can just feel something's different. And I think the Holy Spirit can do that. And so that's just, those are kind of my prayers for this event. Yeah. And I'd love it if our church can join us in praying for that.
I'm also really excited when it's all said and done, when we look back on the Lights at Morning Star this year, 2023, that there'll be no rain days and no days of wind.
Yes.
It's just going to be 55 and 60, sunny with a light breeze coming from
We've
the
never
south.
had any problems with wind. I don't know what you're talking about.
Not at all.
Knocking over props and trees.
This year, good weather. Yeah.
That's the real reason we're trying to move it to
PTSD from that.
Sacramento.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the reason we're taking it on the road.
Sorry, Katrina.
I would also say, as you're listening to this and watching this, I want to encourage you to join in to what God is doing, and prayer.
100%.
Prayer is great. That's a great start. Additionally, we'd love for you to drive through the Lights, check it out, bring a friend, bring a neighbor, bring a family member, and just observe and see what God is doing, and share that story with others. And if you're able to, with your life group, with your Bible study, come and help out serving at the event. Be an active participant in what God is doing, because there's a space for you and there's a place for you, and we want to do this together.
Yeah, I think I will make sure to get in the show notes links to at least get to where you need to go to sign up to volunteer to help set up.
Yep.
This is coming out.
If you're listening to this, there's still time.
Oh yeah, and there's still
time
need.
to sign up.
There's definitely still need.
Unless you're listening to this like a month after it comes out.
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah. But currently, if you're listening to this within the week that it's being released, work days have come to a close, but now we're getting ready to put on the event, and we still would love to have your help.
And don't forget about the cleanup days.
Yeah, the cleanup days.
Yeah,
Praise the
putting
Lord.
everything back in. Woo!
We're running this event December 8th and 9th, December 15th, 16th, and 17th, and December 20th. 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, 6 to 9 p.m. So those are the actual show dates. I'm sure those will be in the show notes or something.
10 Nights of Paradise. Man,
There we go.
Of Paradise. Okay.
I don't know if Katrina, you had any closing thoughts real quick?
Yeah, I am just so proud of this team, and I'm so glad that the Lights is coming back and didn't die after 2 years, and I can't wait to see it, whether that's somebody FaceTiming me through it or somebody buying me a plane ticket to come see it. But yeah, I am really proud of what God has allowed this event to be, and the hard work that I have seen this event bring out of people. And I'm just excited to see what he does this year. I'm excited to hear the stories. I think just repeating a lot of what has been said already, but this event is something special in that it brings people out of their boxes. It gives people a different picture of mission. It brings the church together, and it brings our community together. And to accomplish all of that in one event is something really special. So I pray that God continues to bless it, because it's something really cool.
Yeah.
Good word.
That's awesome. That's a great segment to end on. Thank you so much, Katrina. And thank you guys so much for coming on and talking about the Lights and for everything that you do for it. And thank you, family, who have at this point already volunteered in helping set up and are volunteering to help put on this ministry to our community and to just be a blessing to each other and to the community and to the families in the community. We thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas and enjoy the Lights at Morning Star. Have a good time, family.
Thanks for tuning in to the Morning Star podcast. Join us again next time as we display God's handiwork and encourage you to live a Jesus first life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Morning Star podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Mayhew, and I have a whole crew of people with me here today. We're going to be talking about the Lights